Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 117 of Petey's Awesome Guest Panel. And tonight we have a very special guest star that I could not wait to have on. I'm very excited to have her on here tonight. But before we introduce tonight's guest star, I want to introduce tonight's co-host for this evening, Gary Mike fan, fellow Celebrity Deathmatch fan, PJ's fan, Moral Oil fan, Robot Chicken fan, and my dear friend, Mr. Christopher Petey.
Hey, yo.
Is that going to be your catchphrase from now on, Chris?
It's been for a while, and figure just go with the flow on it.
I'm perfectly fine with that. And now, before I introduce tonight's special guest star for this evening, I just want to read this lady's accolades. Not only is she considered the best in stop motion and claymation animators in history, in my opinion, and that's shared by many, but she's also a recipient of the 2006 Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Individual Achievements in Animation for her work on Robot Chicken, specifically episode Easter Chicken. My guest at this time is the talented and the incredible Sarah Gaudemar. Welcome, Sarah. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Such an honor to have you on. Both Chris and I have been fans of your works for years. Especially Gary and Mike. Your work is just incredible, though. What you did in claymation, stop motion, which in my opinion, I think Chris shares this too. We think that stop motion and or claymation is probably the best animation style in the history of animation.
Well, thank you. I agree with you about the style of animation.
And
thank you for the compliment.
Anytime. And the one question I want to ask before we dive into questions though, and that is, how and when did you get your first big break into animation? Take us there.
Actually, the first stop motion show I did was Celebrity Deathmatch. And that was really just luck, because when I graduated college, wasn't a lot of stop motion going on. I mean, this was shortly after Nightmare Before Christmas, which was awesome and amazing, but the only thing that I think had happened for a very long time. And then they decided they were going to make this show with celebrities wrestling each other, and they really needed people who did stop motion, which is at the time was more of a rare skill. There weren't a lot of people doing it, and I happened to just come out of doing it in college. And I don't know, I got really lucky because my reel was not that good, but I was really excited about it. So I got hired as an assistant, and then, on the job, I learned a lot. So I got better as I did it over and over and over again.
Oh, it's incredible. And did you have a favorite episode that you animated for Celebrity Deathmatch?
Favorite one. I mean, I thought it was really fun to do Michael Jackson and Madonna, which was one. I did most of the fight between Cameron Diaz and Meryl Streep. So for me, that was personally fun because that was the first time I got to do a whole sequence, a whole fight. Because usually you're kind of breaking stuff up with other people in other rooms. And so that was personally for me very fun.
I still remember that Michael Jackson and Madonna fight, where he gets turned into a hamster and she kicks him into the acid vat.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that part. I just remember really enjoying studying the Michael Jackson dancing, which I animated him again in Robot Chicken. So I've studied his dancing a couple times.
Yeah, and not only did you animate the current Michael Jackson look, but you also animated his 1960s look, his original look, when he went to the vat of acid and it burned his face and became the original Michael Jackson.
Oh, I didn't do that scene, so that wouldn't be me. I don't think I did. It's hard to remember. It's so long ago. I don't think I did that one.
Well, we got plenty more Celebrity Deathmatch questions soon to come, and I believe Christopher, you had a question.
What was probably your favorite, or maybe even least favorite, Celebrity Deathmatch fight to animate?
Oof, least favorite. I mean, oh gosh, like I said, it's so hard to remember it. I mean, I remember there was one night that I was working late and I cut myself with an X-Acto knife and I was bleeding, but I don't remember what I was animating, but I remember that was a bad experience because it was a late night. I remember when we were animating the Loch Ness Monster that she was too heavy for the rig. So that was kind of challenging. We ended up, one of the animators actually, we just put a black sweatshirt over his arm and he actually just held the puppet in place. And then they just rotoed him out, which is funny. But I don't think I had one that I didn't like animating.
Chris, you also shared the same opinion about that too, because you didn't like the Loch Ness Monster Bigfoot fight.
Why not?
It was only 6 seconds long in the animation.
Was it that short?
I think
Stone Cold Steve Austin said it himself.
that's when he announced it as the Clay Perfume record, right?
I guess the fight itself, but I remember animating the Loch Ness Monster like jumping into the ring or something. It was like outside on the street. I guess it left the ring and it was out in the street. Because I remember there were buildings and we were doing that animation. But yeah, maybe the fight itself was short.
To me,
the one good thing to come out of that fight was actually the death of Don King, or at least one of the many deaths of Don King. And yeah, of course, Mike Tyson's reaction to it.
See, I never knew this. I need to go watch it all again. You guys have such good memory.
First, reminder of the scene. You did the best impression.
Mike Tyson said this: "I'm free. The king is dead. Long live the Loch Ness Monster."
Actually, I do remember that. That's good.
And that voice that he used for Mike Tyson, I don't know if that was Shawn Michael Howe, because that sounded a lot like Smokey from the PJs. But yeah, like one of the matches, like I was very curious to know if you worked on this one, because it was very interesting how it was set up, and that was the Beastie Boys versus the Backstreet Boys inside the robots. Did you do that?
Oh, I was there when it was done, but I don't think I did any of those shots. If I did, I probably did crowd shot on that one. But I remember it being done. I remember like Suzanne Twining worked on that one. Maybe Tunde. I don't know. But I don't think I did much on that if I did.
What was Eric Fogel like to work with?
He's kind of a quiet guy. He wasn't around so much because he didn't actually like direct all the episodes. He was kind of more of a behind the scenes. We had directors that would come by every day to our stage. That would be somebody else.
Oh, okay. And I always wanted to know this too. And Chris, you probably want to know this as well. But I always wanted to know this, Sarah. Like, how are the matches like predetermined on who was gonna win, like the outcome of the match? Like, did they have like a vote in, like, okay, Oprah's gonna win against Rosie? Like, I was just curious.
I mean, honestly, that's just the writers. So I mean, we just get the scripts and the storyboards, and we just do what we were told. So that's a good question that I don't know the answer to. If there was a system to it, maybe they just flipped a coin. I don't know. That's a good question.
My least favorite match though, like I mean, I love Celebrity Deathmatch, but my least favorite match, if you would ask me, was definitely NSYNC versus Kiss, because I wanted NSYNC to win.
When was that? What season is that?
Season 2, it was the first Halloween episode.
Oh wow, I really don't remember that.
Yeah, I think what happened was because I really wanted NSYNC to win this match, and that's probably why I didn't like it. It was because like they had the NSYNC characters dressed in Halloween costumes and Kiss dressed up in their costumes in their regular thing, and I believe the last people standing were Ace Frehley and Gene Simmons.
Wow, I don't remember that. But I remember animating one of the NSYNC singers on Robot Chicken, because Joey Fatone, he's an NSYNC, right?
Yes.
Yes, so I animated on that Enter the Fat One sketch. So I met him when he came by the studio, but I don't remember it on Deathmatch. It's possible I animated him twice and I don't remember.
Well, when you talk about Robot Chicken, though, did you have a favorite segment or episode that you loved animating for Robot Chicken?
Well, I loved that I got to be a part of the very first Star Wars sketch that they did, which was the Emperor's on the phone and he finds out, about the Millennium Falcon, the Death Star, sorry, being blown up, because he says there's a line about the Millennium Falcon. Anyway, I thought that was really funny and really well written, and I was excited to be a part of it. And then that turned into all of those specials, and then we got to go meet George Lucas, and it was fun. So I would say that's one of my favorites.
Cool stuff. Chris, you had a question?
I guess in Celebrity Deathmatch, has there been sort of like any interaction between you and the voice actors themselves?
Yeah. Oh, you meant Celebrity Deathmatch? Not very often now, but Robot Chicken, yes, because a lot of times the actors would come and they would tour around the stages after they recorded their voices. But Celebrity Deathmatch, I don't know where they did the recording for that, but I don't remember meeting anybody who did voices. I just remember there was one time when after we did Lucy Lawless, because she was what was that show she was on?
Xena Warrior Princess.
Thank you, Xena Warrior Princess. We did a sketch about that, and she called and she left a voicemail, which I still have the recording of, so I could share that if you want, where she was just so excited about, you know, being on the show and the way she'd been portrayed. I thought that was really funny because I love Xena Warrior Princess. So, but that was like the closest I ever came to talking to. I mean, I wasn't even talking to. We did meet Mills Lane. He came by.
What was Mills like?
It was interesting, I guess. He's a lot like he seems he would be, I would say.
Did he scream, "Let's get it on"?
No, he didn't, but I would have imagined him to do it.
And also one of my favorite Robot Chicken segments. I don't know if you animated this one, but it was definitely the one with the Flintstones where Barney steals Fred's Fruity Pebbles, and then he winds up actually accidentally killing him, and then it was just a funny segment. That, and also there was a 10-second segment where it was a mailman and he's going through the mail, he's going junk, 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 not good, bill, junk.
I don't remember that one. The Flintstones sounds kind of familiar. I don't know who did that one. I can't really picture that. But I don't remember the mail one. I have to go watch those again too.
What was Seth Green like?
Oh, he's really nice. He's a nice guy.
Okay.
He's very fun.
Another show you worked on too, and I remember when it first debuted. It debuted January 4th, 1999, and that was the PJs. Memories of working on the PJs.
Yeah, you know, I worked on the PJs for just a little bit because they were doing Gary and Mike and the PJs simultaneously, and I moved out to Portland to work on Gary and Mike is what I was hired on. And then they actually, when we were halfway done shooting the Gary and Mike that first season, they pulled the plug on it. It was supposed to be on Fox TV on Sunday nights, and they decided they didn't want to do it. So we came in one day and they had donuts, and everybody's like, "Oh, donuts." And they said, "Yeah, by the way, you don't have jobs anymore. Like, we're not doing the rest of the show." So they just told us all to go home, which was really traumatic. So like whenever I see donuts at work, it's a bad memory. But I did end up managing to get a job on the PJs, which was very lucky. And so I did work on it a little bit then, but I wasn't on like the PJs the whole time. I was just there when Gary and Mike was not happening. And then they managed to get UPN to buy Gary and Mike. And then we all came back and we finished the season. So that was kind of a fun reunion.
Was there any and Chris, this is a perfect opportunity to ask this question. Was there any like a continuation of what happened at the end of Crisscross of Gary and Mike where they jumped over the gorge? Was there a planned a planned part 2 for that episode? Well,
I mean, there was always an intention to do another season of the show, which just never happened. That's a good question. You should get the writers of the show. I'm sure they would come on and they would address that. They could tell you better than I would. We never intended to only do one season.
Adam Small on the show.
Oh, you did? Okay. So what did he say?
Did we ask him that question, Chris?
You should have.
What was I thinking?
I mean,
you would know better than I would.
Yeah, he said that there was actually like more episodes planned. They didn't necessarily intend to get canceled.
Yeah,
I think he said
that's true.
Yeah, there was like 10 episodes ready for production, and ultimately, because of cancellation and studio folding and the network running out of money, the financial issues just stopped season 2. It's in its tracks.
I will say that was, of all the jobs I've worked on, that's still one of my absolute favorites because it was just this period of time where we shot, because we've been shooting on film and then we started shooting digitally for that. And this is the first time we had like software that was written in the computer to help us shoot really quickly. And so we managed to shoot it really fast, which meant we were always sort of, on schedule or ahead of schedule, which is kind of rare. So we had lots of time to just be relaxed and party a lot. And, you know, I was just young and I was making a good salary. Like, it just felt like a really good time that I really kind of miss. Like, we bonded. It was a good crew.
And I just, oh, you go ahead, Chris.
Although I did hear that a lot of the guys were like burning the midnight oil for that show because of like the crunch time that happened after UPN and took the episodes. Isn't that true?
I mean, there's always overtime on everything I've worked on, but for a while we were doing 4-day work weeks, which was crazy because we had 3-day weekends. And we were doing like these 2-hour lunches on Thursdays to like celebrate making quota. And I mean, I don't remember if I'm thinking back on jobs where I had to really work a lot to get it done. That's not one that stands out as being one of the worst. But maybe I'm just, you know, it's been a long time and I'm just remembering the good parts. But I don't remember having like crazy long nights or anything.
What was your favorite episode to animate of Gary and Mike, and or even like a favorite episode that you just love to watch in general?
What do I love on Gary? I did the mole dancing, the mole people dancing sequence. I don't know what you call it. They're down in the
Yeah,
sewer.
the Molefolk song.
But yes, I did. I did not all of it. I didn't do all of it. There were other animators, but I did some of that with all the dancing and stuff. And that was, I think, my favorite because it was a whole choreographed dance sequence, and I thought the song was really fun. And so that would be my favorite.
New York, one of my favorites, especially Chris. Sarah, Chris, do you remember that scene where Gary's in the bathroom and then you see the little guy in the hole going, "Hey,
what you doing?" It's a good line. It's a good line.
As a little kid, I died. I felt like my sides were gonna split. That's how hard I was laughing at that scene. And then he comes
We
back.
quoted that one a lot.
The guy comes back and he goes, "Hey, what you doing? Napping before you poop again?"
I remember that one.
Oh man, but did you like have what was the most difficult scene to animate in Gary and Mike?
Well, I mean, maybe the dancing, because it was coordinated with lots of different characters. It was, you know, anytime you're animating more than one character, it's a lot to keep track of. So that's more difficult than just, you know, a close-up of somebody. So probably that would be the hardest.
Yeah, I agree. Chris, you have another question, right?
Was there a least favorite episode of Gary and Mike to animate?
You're really interested in the stuff I don't like. I don't remember disliking anything, so I don't know. I don't know how to answer that.
Did you design? I'm sorry. What'd you say, Chris?
Yeah. I was just gonna say, yeah, that's fine. But oh, what do you suppose like they may have gone into like one of the more memorable shots of like the one in the episode, the furry duffel, where
okay. That's my favorite, I think, of the whole series. When he doesn't see, she turns her head and Gary doesn't see it. And he's like, what, that little birthmark? That's so cute. That is one of my favorite moments in the whole show. I didn't animate it, but that's one of my favorites for sure. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I remember Mike's reaction. It was saying, beauty mark, that's what you call that furry duffel bag on the side of her face? And I used to think that it was all the same with on the inside with the lights off, but all the insides in the world couldn't get me past that outside. Something like that. I'm paraphrasing really, but
I don't remember the lines. You're better than I would know.
That episode had so many great lines. So I remember with the hands on the hot rod scene where
oh yeah, that was good.
What was it like animating that scene, especially with the car? Was it very hard to design cars on the show?
I don't know about designing the cars, and actually, I didn't animate that. That was I know Brad Schiff did a lot of that. So you could ask him.
Okay.
I think that was his sequence, the hands on hot rod. I really liked that character, the double D with the big gut and the cowboy boots. There was an animator on the show who dressed up as him for Halloween. I should send you the picture. It's perfectly done.
Yeah, and
I think we actually did post that on the Gary and Mike wall.
Oh, really?
because
Okay.
yeah,
Have you seen it? I probably posted it before, so it's probably out there in the world.
Do you remember any memories of the episode Fish Fry?
Uh, did I work on that one? I don't think I worked on that one. I think that's Ken Pontak's episode. I don't think I've worked on it. But he's another good person to have on. You should talk to him.
I'd love that. Like, we gotta get them, Chris. We gotta get these. Like, well, Fish Fry, I think, was the episode when Gary marries that he was on acid and he marries that 50-year-old hippie with like the 3 kids.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't work on that one.
Well, she wasn't
but
50 years old. She was actually 35.
35. Oh. But yeah. What about Corn Ugly Dog? Did you work on that one?
I don't think so. I worked on the cult episode. I worked on the Road Rules episode, the New York episode. I can't think, there's probably another one, but those are the ones I can remember very clearly that I worked on those.
So you could definitely set the record straight on here. Like the Glory Holians, that's what they're called, right?
That's the cult, yeah.
Were they based on Heaven's Gate?
Yes.
Because Bob reminded me so much of Marshall Applewhite.
Is that one the name of the guy? But I remember Heaven's Gate and I remember being based on that.
Was it Dick Van Patten that voiced that character?
Yes, I think so. I think you're right.
And the Gary Mike I loved about it is it had so much all-star cast members. You had Harlan Williams, you had Kirk.
Oh yeah, Harlan.
What is Harlan anything like Mike in real life?
No, he was really nice. I met him at the rap party. And I met the guy who did Gary. His name was Chris something, right? I can't think of his name right now.
Christopher Monahan.
Oh, okay. Yes, they were both very nice.
What about Bryan Cranston?
I did not meet him on that. Did he do a voice on that? Because I met him, I worked on another show that he did, which was Super Mansion many years after that.
He was
I don't remember him being on Gary and Mike.
Wasn't he Sergeant Major Newton Sr.?
Oh, was he?
That's
wow. It's before he was really like super famous, right? So I probably didn't even realize.
Before Malcolm in the Middle.
Yeah, so yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. And
because I've animated him multiple times then in my life.
Do you have any memories of working on Moral Oral?
Oh yeah, but see, now you're getting a little more recent, and the more recent you get, the better my memory is gonna be.
What were some of your favorite memories working on Moral Oral?
Well, that's a show that started off way more goofy and ended up way more serious. But it was kind of fun to do like really dramatic stuff because usually with animation you're doing, it was like, let's say I did wrestling or you're doing kid stuff. So I think it's really cool when you can just do the stuff you don't usually expect to do in animation. And that was a show where there's definitely a lot of very serious adult stuff to animate. So I thought it was an interesting challenge because you really get to do some acting. It's very serious acting.
Now, like how you like the way you design the characters though, are they like interior, like the first layer is like clay and then they have like these bendy pipe to make them movable? Like how are the characters designed in claymation?
It's not claymation. They have no clay. They are entirely, the bodies are made out of foam latex. The clothing is, material, and the heads are like a hard plastic. And I don't even think, I guess, what was clay? The eyebrows. Oh. We would melt the clay with wax, and then they had some malleability and they kind of stuck on the face. And the eyelids were sculpted on in clay.
What about the deathmatch ring? Was that clay or was that?
So in deathmatch, the heads were clay, the bodies were all foam latex. And because clay is really heavy, when we did something like they were flying in the air, we would have special heads for that where they were made out of styrofoam. So they didn't look as good as the clay, but they were only, in action, so you wouldn't see them as well. But that way they wouldn't be too heavy because you have to hold it up on a wire when it's flying. And clay is heavy.
Well, there's one scene I remember where there definitely was a flying head, and that was the Jackie Chan, Jean-Claude Van Damme fight. Did you animate that fight?
I didn't. I hate to disappoint you.
You're not. Like, I just love like these behind the scenes stories. Like Chris and I love behind the scenes stuff. And another project I believe you did work on was Coraline. Am I right?
Yes, I did work on Coraline,
What was it
which
like
is
doing that?
probably my favorite thing I've worked on because I really like that movie.
Oh, the animation was it's exquisite. I loved it. Like especially that came out in 2000, like in the
9,
2009.
maybe February 2009, I think. I want to say I worked on it in 2008. I think I started working on 2007 into 2008, and then the movie came out in February 2009. And
Oh,
that was amazing because those other animators on that were people that I had admired for years. I mean, they were like the best in the industry. So just to be around all those people was just amazing. Just to meet all these heroes of mine was really cool.
that's incredible. Chris, you had a question?
Uh, so in spite of Gary and Mike's abrupt end, did you yourself like maybe have any vision of what could have happened after like crisscross, where they could have gone, how they could have escaped the police, how they could have possibly proved their names? I suppose this is actually something that's really more of a question for the writers. And yeah,
It is. I
honestly,
should have
like,
brushed up. I should have, if I know these were the questions, I should have watched it again because I don't remember how did it end exactly. How did the episode end?
Can I take this one, Chris?
Yes, please
go ahead.
remind me.
Okay. What happened was that they get chased down the hospital and they jumped off the hospital thing into like the kids with like that were jumping on a flighty thing, and then they jumped in their car, head on the road, and then they got surrounded by the police and
Right,
officers.
it's like a Thelma and Louise thing, right?
Yes, Thelma and Louise, literally
Yeah.
thing.
Okay, that's what I kind of remember. And then what does it, do we see them drive off the cliff or it stops?
Yeah, we see them drive off the edge of the bridge, and this is keeping in mind that it's an incomplete highway, and the bridge itself isn't like nearly as deep as the chasm that Thelma and Louise stay within. And yeah, there's a bit more survivability in the water than there is a chasm.
But we don't see
So,
them die? Is that what happened? Okay.
no, we don't see them die. The
That was
the
probably an
script gets
ending that
wiped
was
out
like,
for a to
this
be
could
continued.
go, probably it was something that was like, this can go either way. I mean, either the show's gonna end and they've just done like a Thelma and Louise ending, which is awesome. Or if the show came back, then we would show them surviving somehow. So that was a good ending to, go both ways if needed.
I just wish the last line
Yeah,
was
Adam Small said that they were. Yeah, Adam Small said that they were actually going to land on a boat and continue the journey from there. But yeah, that's a little bit confusing because land on the boat and continue the journey from there, but they're still being chased by the helicopter.
yeah.
Right?
Well, but
So like yeah, and
we
following
figured it out.
continuity. Yeah, so
Don't worry
yeah,
about the continuity. That's funny that makes sense. I like that. It's too bad there wasn't another season then to do that.
One thing
Maybe they'll resurrect it. I don't know.
I'd like to see that. Really,
me too.
Well, so write to the network.
Chris, you gotta get that letter going, man. Well,
Demand
shit.
it.
Who do I got to write to, please?
let's write to the Will Vinton Company.
Well, it's not Will Vinton anymore. It's like a.
Well, yeah, it's defunct now, so we couldn't really write to Will Vinton Company or Will Vinton Studios. I think maybe like
But
either
Adam
Leica or
and Fax, the two guys who made it, like they could do it somewhere else. I mean, they're the ones who own it, right?
I believe so, yeah.
I mean, Adam and Fax haven't really been speaking to each other like for the longest time now, and it's a little bit hard to
Oh,
say
I didn't know that.
yeah, it's a little bit hard to say if they would be like, I guess, I don't know, having the will of do it. And when I asked about and possibly like bringing the show back himself, he said that only if there was like money in it for him, because he don't work for free.
I mean, that makes sense. I didn't realize they weren't partners anymore, so I guess that makes sense then. I mean,
I don't know if
maybe
it's like that
maybe
they
it
have a
won't come
falling
back.
out. From my understanding, they didn't have a falling out. It's just that they just both went their separate ways and didn't have much reason to work with each other anymore.
What one thing
But yeah, I'd like to see, yeah, work together, bring it back, and I don't know if it's like maybe a case of expenses, whereas they don't have the same budget as Robot Chicken does. Maybe I like to do it in another way, like they did with the latest Ninja Turtles movie, because that was pretty similar to claymation, I think.
They could, I mean, that'd be great if they reunite and they decide to do another season and we all come back. That'd be cool.
I'd love that too.
Same here. And I gotta ask this too, Sarah, like, because I've seen like the Instagram pictures of like the behind the scenes stuff you did for the PJs doll, and you talked about like how the characters were made up. What were the buildings made out of, especially in the PJs when you're walking down the street? And that was an incredible set.
I mean, they're constructed out of wood and painted. Nothing crazy.
Do you have any of like any of the props from any of the shows that you like they allowed you to keep?
Well, they don't normally let you keep stuff. It's very rare that you get like a puppet or anything. I have a few things, but I mean, that's just not from PJs, because again, it wasn't on that enough that they would have given me anything, but I did keep one of the, I've got one of the eyelids for, who's the character with the, she was old and she was shaking and she had like the shotgun. What's her name?
Mrs. Avery.
Mrs. Avery. I have one of her eyelids with the eyelashes and everything. I don't know. I randomly have that. That was in my kit somehow, and I think that's the only thing I've got.
Well, you designed the characters on that show, right?
I didn't design them. No, I'm just an animator. I don't take credit for other people's art.
Would you say like probably one of the hardest scenes though, going back to Celebrity Deathmatch, was probably the Legacy two fat ladies fight, because they actually blended his foot in like.
Oh, I love doing that actually, because I love the clay animation on that. That was really fun. Doing the blender is just, it's just moving the clay around. That was another one where I got to do like a big solid chunk of it, and I really enjoyed that. The clay animation, that was really fun. Like she has the drink, and so there's like the little sloshing, and that's fun stuff to animate. Those little details.
Did you design Legacy when he got cooked or no?
No, I mean, I didn't design anything. I animate it. So, like they give us the puppets and then, I make it move. I give it life. I don't remember what he looked like when he got cooked.
Oh, he basically looked like a roast pig.
Oh yeah. So I don't think so I did the whole when they're doing the cooking, but I don't think I did any like whatever he looked like afterwards. I don't think I did that shot. So I can't remember that. Or maybe I didn't. It's just been like 30 years or something.
How long would it usually take to make one episode of Celebrity Deathmatch, like to animate?
That's a good question. I know when we did Robot Chicken, which is kind of a similar schedule, each episode was like 11 minutes or 15 minutes, something in there, and that took a week. It was supposed to take a week, maybe sometimes it took longer. And I'm just talking about the animation. There's also writing and all that. So there's more to it than that, but just the shooting took a week. So, I mean, Deathmatch was probably pretty similar. The quotas were like 10 seconds a day, which is really high. It doesn't sound high, I know, but it's actually a lot.
What was the deathmatch ring made out of? Was it wood or was it styrofoam or
wood? It was wood, yeah. And you would drill holes into it, because styrofoam, the problem with it would be that it would just break too easily. It wouldn't be solid enough. You need a really solid ground, because you screw them in and you tighten it with the nuts and bolts and everything, and it's very solid because you're gonna crank on it. So
was it difficult to make new rings for every episode or no?
I think they just mass produced a whole bunch of rings. And yeah, I mean, when we would have that ring in our shoe room for a long time. I mean, I don't think they broke very easily. So I think the ring we had it for a long time.
Oh, okay. And
yeah.
Did you get to meet Stone Cold Steve Austin when on Celebrity Deathmatch or no?
I didn't. And then I animated him again on a WWE show. And I didn't meet him then either. I've never gotten a chance. I've animated him twice, but never met him.
Well, you mentioned that. I think that was called Slam City, right?
Slam City, yes, I worked on that.
on WWE Slam City.
Well, I mean, I honestly, as an animator, animating things like wrestling, it's really fun because it's a lot of like big motions and physics and you know, you just get to be kind of loose. You know, when you're doing small acting, it's, you know, it's really fiddly, but when you're doing like big dynamic moves, there's something really satisfying about like really feeling the action. It's fun. And I think also because I got my start on a show like that, I learned kind of the physics and to be really big first, and then I kind of dialed that down. And I think that most of the people who started on that they're really good animators. Like I really think that's a good way to learn. Like you should start with a wrestling show and then go on to something like Coraline.
Interesting. And definitely like, and this I want to get your professional opinion on this though. Like, when you animate characters, do you prefer characters like Gary Mike where they have 5 fingers, or ones that have 4, like the PJs and Celebrity Deathmatch?
I I mean, as long as they're really nicely articulated, then I guess it doesn't matter as long as they can really hold stuff themselves. When you have characters that can't really hold their own props, it's kind of annoying. Although I don't really love it when the hands get so big that they're like giant things. So, but I mean, I guess I don't have a preference on the number of fingers. As long as they're like really good fingers that bend really well, I like it.
And there's a lot of scenes in the PJs where they just show a lot of point of view of the hands. Like there's scenes of like Sanchez and Thurgood playing chess, and you get like a close up of their hands.
And you know, surprisingly, those shots are kind of tricky. Doing hand shots is it's harder than you think.
Because you have to animate them manipulating an object, right?
Yeah, and it's just hard to kind of get the subtlety right and get it to move right.
I noticed too, like in the PJs, they did a very unique way of like how to like it's like for every like lady character on the show, they always had painted nails. I always noticed that, like Muriel had painted nails, Haiti lady, Bebe, and then the guys just have regular brown nails.
Huh. I didn't even pay attention to that.
That
But you're good at noticing details.
I love the style. I love stop motion, like, and that's what I was gonna ask you too. Like for every scene where you have to like do like a where you're recording how they're talking, is it like 1 frame each shot and then you take a picture of each shot for each mouth, or no?
To do the lip sync,
Yeah.
that you do it frame by frame. You always record audio before you animate, and then you get we have this what we call an X sheet, which is it's got all the dialogue. You have all these lines on it for each frame, and then it's got the dialogue all broken down into each sound and how long the sound lasts, and then yeah, you follow that as you go. You check, I'm on this frame, so the mouth is doing this sound, and then you do the shape for that sound.
Oh, okay. And did you animate Johnny Gomez and Nick Diamond in the booth?
I did actually, they were the first thing I spent a lot of time. Well, actually, they're not the first thing I made. The very first shot I ever did on Celebrity Deathmatch was it was Oprah Winfrey and Rosie O'Donnell.
Jerry Springer, right?
Yeah, was it? Was he in that one? Because did they come back? I remember. Okay, but I just remember the shot was like she steps on her head or she does something, and I had her eyeballs come out, and then put them back in, which I just kind of. You were free to do a lot of stuff. Like they weren't. It was just like have fun, right? So I did that, and this is my first shot, and the director came in, and he's like, I'm not sure if that's going to pass through the standards and practices. Like how they censor things, I guess. And so they were actually worried that it was like too violent, which that was early on. And obviously, eventually they learned they could get away with an awful lot. You've seen the show. But it was just funny that, I mean, I was kind of a shy, young, new animator. And the first thing I did was this like eyeball popping out shot. Anyway, I think it stayed in and they were fine with it. So, but after that, I did do a lot of the Johnny and Nick in the booth. I did a lot of that, which is just a lot of like talking. So that's a lot of lip sync and not much else.
I want to get your opinion on this, Sarah, because I always wondered this as a kid, though, and they explained it in the 2006 revival of Celebrity Deathmatch when Cup of Coffee Studios produced that. But how in the world did Johnny Gomez and Nick Diamond actually get up and down from those booths? Because in every episode, it seems like they just literally climb down instead of going down a ladder.
I mean, I've only ever seen characters climbing up the side of that. I don't think there was ever a thought out real method for getting up there. It's a good question. Maybe they were airlifted.
I always wonder that. Chris, your next question.
I mean, I was about to ask that one. So yeah, this is kind of what happens when we like don't have a script for these kind of interviews, man.
That's why it's like this is all improvised, man. Like we're not doing a question format. This is all loose question for the first time, man.
I just wish I could remember more. I feel bad.
Chris, are you sure you don't have one, buddy?
Uh, um, well, you said you worked on Nightmare Before Christmas, right? Or
No, I didn't. That was an influence for me. That was made when I was in high school, so I didn't work on it. I wish I had.
Oh.
But I've met a lot of people who worked on it and they're amazing.
Okay, like, how much influence did you take from like the animation in Nightmare Before Christmas?
Well, I mean,
Just like
it's sort of what encouraged me to be a stop motion animator. I mean, the literal thing that really grabbed me when I was in high school was do you guys remember I don't know how old you do you know of the Spike and Mike animation festivals?
Yes, I do. That was an MTV,
Okay.
wasn't it?
That was just something that was traveling around. It was like a collection of short films. It was the best way for independent animators to have their work seen. And I went to one when I was in high school, and in that festival was the Creature Comforts short, which they eventually made a series years later. But originally it was just a short film by Aardman. Have you seen that?
I haven't seen it. No. How about you?
Okay, you should watch it. I loved it. It was what they did was they went out on the street and they interviewed people about their living situation, about their homes, like real life people. And then they took that real audio and they took it and they animated animals in a zoo, lip syncing to that, the real people talking about their homes. And there was something about it that was just so brilliant. It was so good. And I honestly, that was the thing that really kind of grabbed me. And then, all the Wallace and Gromit shorts. And then Nick Park came and spoke at my school when I was there, and I was really excited.
Well, any memories of working on Wallace and Gromit?
I didn't work on Wallace and Gromit. I mean, I'm just saying it was an influence to me because those were made again when I was in high school and college. Like A Close Shave was released, I think, when I was in college, and that was why Nick Park came. They orchestrated this whole thing where I don't think it was real. I thought it was real at the time, but I think it's actually a publicity stunt. He lost Wallace and Gromit in the trunk of a taxi cab, and then they got returned to him at the school. They had like the press there and everything. But I think I found out later that it was faked. I don't think it was real, but I believed it was real at the time. Everybody was like, "Oh my God, Wallace and Gromit, they're in the back of a taxi cab."
Oh man. Like, and also I believe around the same time that Celebrity Deathmatch came out was a popular movie that came out too that was also stop motion and it was called Chicken Run.
Oh, that was later though,
That was
right?
later?
I mean, I guess Celebrity Deathmatch went on for a long time. For me, that was after I was there. But I think that's still the highest grossing stop motion movie of all time. Still,
I believe so.
I think it is. Yeah.
Another thing I remember too is like I talked about the debut of the PJs. I still remember to this day. It was actually, you know how I'm gonna remember how Celebrity Deathmatch debuted, Sarah, is that that episode aired. It aired around Cartoon Sushi. You remember Cartoon Sushi? Like that was an animation
Sounds
block.
familiar.
And it was January 25th, 1998, Death Bowl 98, and it had three fights. It had Howard Stern versus Kathy Lee Gifford. It had Pam Anderson versus RuPaul. And finally, what the match everybody wanted to see, especially around that time, was Hanson versus the Spice Girls.
Yeah, I worked on that.
I was gonna say, like, if you worked on that, memories of animating that fight.
Well, actually, what I remember most was one of the animators on the show was a huge Spice Girls fan. So at the time, they used to have those stickers that came in the gum.
Yeah.
And he bought like a giant box of it. And so the Spice Girls stickers were everywhere, all over. That's really what I remember most. Just there were Spice Girls stickers everywhere. Do you remember, did you see the thing that actually kicked off the whole show was when they did the Super Bowl halftime show?
Yes.
Remember that? Okay. Because that was before that. That's what because that was popular, that's why they made the show, and that's how we all got our jobs.
Yep, I remember that was actually the first fight was Marilyn Manson versus Charles Manson.
And oh, Kids of the Spice Girls were part of that. I see they were the first episode. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Did you work on that one with Marilyn Manson versus Charles?
No, that was made. I mean, that's before I was ever a part of it. I just got this. I found out from a friend of mine who said, yeah, they did this. The Super Bowl halftime show was very popular, which I actually missed it. I hadn't seen it, so I didn't know anything about it. But then they were like, yeah, they're going to do this show where characters are wrestling each other to the death. I'm like, sure, why not? Sign me up.
This I want to ask you, and this might be the little boy nerd in me asking this question though, but you remember at the end of the Spice Girls Hanson fight when the scaffold falls down on them because Marilyn Manson cut the rope?
Oh, okay. No, I mean, now that you say it, yes.
I was just wondering, like what was the scaffolding like made out of? Was that a wood like scaffolding like when it fell down on the ring and killed the Hanson and Spice Girls?
Probably. I mean, it might have been made out of like a aluminum or something. I don't remember. But I mean, probably not anything too heavy. If it had to animate, it has to be pretty lightweight.
Oh, okay. Did you produce the Siskel? I mean, animate the Siskel and Ebert fight?
I did, and I know that because I have photos of me animating it, but I really can't remember that one. It's just so much. We did so much. Like we were just. It's like a factory. Like it was just a grind. You know, you're just churning out. Like there were so many fights that. Some of them stand out, but some of them just like I was just kind of on autopilot, I guess.
I did want to ask another thing going back to Gary Mike though, like with the characters, I noticed sometimes like, and Chris, you mentioned this numerous times too, like there was characters that had the same design as other characters. Like for instance, the drunk guy in New York, had the same design as Ba from Cult Status. Was that done deliberately, where like some of the characters would share the same design?
Well, okay, so it's a low budget, right? So you have your main characters, and then you make some molds that are all of your background characters. And so what you tend to do is you reuse that mold for multiple characters. You just dress them differently, or paint them differently, or switch the heads, and that's just a way to make to stretch your budget, because making a puppet is actually very expensive. So, I mean, if you watch, there's like a small number of the same designs that get used a lot. So if you pay attention to the background characters, you'll see it's basically populated with the same molds, just like repainted different ways.
Oh, okay. And I was gonna ask this question, but I'm gonna let Chris ask this question, and this is a Gary Mike one as well. And we had a question about like Gary Mike and the cart like sequences, and Chris, you wanted to touch up on that, right? Like,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, how are they like often animated from, I guess, the perspective that we were given, and like how they were like supposed to be able to, I don't know, just have that background that they've always had. And, well, you know what I mean. Is it true that Gary and Mike is actually unique in the way that it's had been the first claymation work that had both like claymation and blue screen used?
I mean, we did do a lot of blue
Because
screen. I don't know that it would be the first. I mean, I don't think that was like brand new technology, but we did do green screen. So definitely like when they're driving and stuff, that would be done on a green screen. You just shoot them in the car, and then they put a background moving in the background. What was interesting about Gary and Mike that was unusual and different from the other shows was if you look at stuff, it's all photographs of like walls or whatever, and it's just a picture that is glued onto, like they might build a building in 3D, which is just wood, and then like all the bricks and stuff are actually just a picture that's been glued onto it, and like everything in the background is it's like a weird 2.5D, I guess you would say, where it's all two-dimensional, but kind of put in a way that gives it a three-dimensional look. I don't know if you've noticed, but next time you watch it, pay attention to the way that all the sets are made. It's mostly photographs.
Oh, I've definitely dissected just about every episode, word for word, minute for
Okay,
minute,
but that was
second by second.
unusual, and that was a really innovative way to save money on making the set. So I thought it was neat. I thought it worked really well.
I agree. And just like also to touch up on what Chris said though, like did they have like multi cameras like on different shots? So like in one scene, like it could be like a first camera, then second camera. Like I was just curious to know if there were multi-angle cameras.
Not for animation. I'll tell you, I have tried to animate something with multiple cameras because it would like save time. It's it's almost impossible. It's really hard to do. You really do animate to the camera. And so a lot of things are really cheated. So if you put another camera, that angle is going to look bad. And so if you cheat it to make that look good, the other one's going to look bad. Like I don't know how to explain it really, but you really do things that make it look, make your shot, that camera look good. And from another angle, it's gonna look weird. It's all cheated. It's all smoke and mirrors animation.
Do you prefer animating characters or backgrounds and designs? Backgrounds and sets?
Well, you mean like objects and things then?
Well, like in the PJs, like the buildings, like when they go to the Hilton Jacobs projects, like the outside of the Hilton Jacobs projects, or like
Well,
what
those aren't really animated or moving.
I mean, like well, characters or sets. That's what I meant to say. Like, did you prefer like working like with the characters, like
I mean, characters are always fun because you're coming up with the acting and the emotions. So, I mean, I do really enjoy animating characters, but sometimes it's fun. Like I do a lot of like advertising stuff now where I'm animating objects and products, and that's actually kind of a fun challenge. And so I also think that's fun. I think animating is fun in general. So, whatever it is, you give it to me, I'll animate it.
and all the shows you've worked on, did they have storyboards or no?
Oh, always, yes. Yeah. Storyboards they're your roadmap. And an animatic, you have to have an animatic, which is this, I mean, I don't know if I'm telling you stuff but it's the storyboards are edited with the sound so that you can watch the video. So you have all the timing and that's the roadmap that everybody follows. It's absolutely essential.
Ah, very cool. And like for any show that you've done, like it could be Robot Chicken, Celebrity Deathmatch, PJs, Gary Mike, you name it. Was there a specific scene that you animated where you're like, damn, I am very proud of what we just did right here?
On any project?
On any project you worked on?
I think the one that I am most proud of is when there's this cat shot on Coraline and the cat's like walking up the tree, and I studied my cat very carefully and I used that reference, and I feel like there's like little details that like real cat movement, and that just, I don't know, this makes me really happy and proud. It's like that's the fun part of animation is you can find these little realistic details that really sell something. And so yeah, I like there's parts of it where I'm like, that looks like a cat. And so I just like, I did it, I animated a cat.
Did you see the Simpsons Halloween parody where they parodied Coraline? They called it Coralisa, and
No, I need to watch that.
I gotta send you that. They did it perfectly, like with the talking cat and the animation. It was great.
Oh yeah, send it to me, it'll be funny to see.
Absolutely. And we just have a couple more questions before we wrap up, of course. I just want to know too, like when it comes to like doing scenes like in Gary Mike or PJ, do you prefer like working on different scenes, whether it's Thurgood's apartment or the projects, or even like in Gary Mike, do you prefer like working animated Gary Mike while they're in their car or while they're at different locations?
I mean, it's always easier if you're in a set where you can be right next to the puppets and it's easy access. And I mean, that's your favorite because you can work really quickly and there's no backache. So yeah, I don't love it when they're in like a weird thing like a car where you can't really touch them really easily but on the flip side, whenever you have a character in an unusual location, it ends up looking more interesting. So maybe there's more satisfaction at the end of the shot, but it's not necessarily more fun to do it during it.
Ah, and the cars on the show on Gary and Mike, those are they toy cars or are they actual cars made from like wood and stuff, like the deathmatch ring?
Yeah, they made them. I mean, I think they were like a plastic that they, made a mold and cast it. And Yeah, so it was handmade. It's not like something they bought, like a toy or something. But you know, if you have them in the car and you're animating them, like if you drop an eyelid or something, which happens, it goes down into the, like in a regular car, you know, it goes down into the, between the seats and the cushions, and you can't get it out. And that's really frustrating because you don't want to dig your hand in there, and you don't want to move the character, because then it'll be like, you know, so yeah, that's asking about whether I would prefer the car or not. I would not prefer the car for that reason.
That's very fair to say. Like I just love the, like the animation style. It just brings back a lot of memories just talking about these shows, especially you worked on Robot Chicken and Gary Mike and the PJs. Like and with the Gary Mike though, you remember the episode Springard, right? Springard?
Yeah,
Did you
I kind of remember it, yeah.
say the word design, but did you animate the scene where Gary gets stung by the bee?
No.
Or what about in Fish Fry?
I don't think I worked on that episode at all, or Fish Fry. So I don't think I could help you with any of that.
How about Dawn of the New Millennium?
Was that one of the episodes?
That was the first episode.
It's the first one.
That's what it was called? Oh, wow. I didn't remember that.
That's the one with
I mean, probably I worked on the first. What happens in the first one? It's when they go off on the road, right?
go off on the road, they get caught by the hitchhikers, they get robbed by the hitchhikers, they eat a pet rabbit thinking that they're Satan lovers.
No, you know what? I think what it was is we would shoot 2 episodes simultaneously. And I think I started on episode 2, which was the cult status. And so I was always on the even numbered episodes because they were simultaneously shot. So I ended up, yeah, there's like half the episodes I'm not a part of because that's how we shot it.
Well, you worked on Road Rage, right?
Yeah, Road Rage, yes, I did.
Was the wrestling ring that they used when they had China on the show, was that the same ring they used for Celebrity Deathmatch or no?
I don't even remember the ring. I mean, it wouldn't be the exact same because it's 2 different studios. But I mean, it's probably constructed very similarly because, you know, it's the wrestling ring wouldn't be too different, but I can't remember it. I didn't do that scene.
Okay.
So.
Chris, I gotta share this with you, man. Did you know that China was the only wrestler that appeared on both Gary and Mike and Celebrity Deathmatch?
Oh yeah, we definitely like. Yeah, I had that at least one appearance, and yeah, it kind of always bothered me too that Jerry Springer himself didn't really like play himself on either Celebrity Deathmatch or Gary and Mike, but at the same time, he also like still appeared in a way that was like a spoof of himself, and we also have to look back on him as like the late Jerry Springer now, since he was also an icon of the aughts and the late 90s.
Oh yeah, because he was in both of those shows, yeah.
And Sarah, I gotta ask, because you mentioned the Oprah Rosie fight. Did you animate Springer coming down on the parachute?
No. I think I just did stuff between Rosie and Oprah, but not the Jerry Springer stuff.
Oh, okay. And Chris, do you have any final comments or questions for Sarah?
I suppose I'm kind of interested in maybe your input on this particular idea that I've always kind of had inspiration and to go ahead and put out there to whoever might pick it up. So I'd actually written a screenplay a while back that was going to be a part 2 to Crisscross. So we would see.
Did you show it to Adam Small?
I mean, I tried to show it to him, but yeah, I think he was saying once again that he'd only like maybe entertain the idea if he was actually going to be getting paid to actually make the episode himself. So yeah, kind of shot me down right there. But anyway.
But you never know, if they pick it up, maybe you can use that to get hired in the writer's room.
Something I may consider later down the line. But yeah, the idea I had was like Gary and Mike, of course, land on a boat, but they have to abandon the Bel Air. And because they're still being pursued by the police, they swim for their lives to the nearest sewage drainage pipe. And they are able to actually avoid getting shot at. Bullets like hit the water, because knowing the physics of bullets themselves, if you ever try to hit somebody who's actually swimming, you'll like get some luck by hitting them if they're swimming on the surface, but if they're swimming underwater, or the bullets are just gonna like kind of be buffered like they are hitting jelly or something like that.
That you can't shoot somebody underwater? I actually didn't know.
And so yeah, they would actually be safe in that regard. And so they get
good to know. If someone's
like,
shooting at me, I'll go underwater then.
And so anyway, they get to the sewage pipe, and then after that, we see like a flashback sequence that sort of just reflects on their time, like between Crisscross and Corndog Ugly, because there was actually a bit of a gap if we like pay attention to the continuity. So in Corndog Ugly, they arrive at Mall of America in Minnesota in the wintertime, which starts in November. And they would actually go to San Francisco in Crisscross, which would have happened sometime in like late June, because this is when the Gay Pride Parade would have taken place. And
did we screw up? Did we shoot the episodes wrong?
not necessarily, because yeah, those are the two last episodes.
Okay.
And so yeah, it would actually be implied that they had probably at least stayed in Mall of America to continue working there for Corn Diggity Dog for maybe about 6 or 7 months. And during this time, and we would actually see Gary lose his virginity to Elaine. And
wait, who's Elaine? I don't
as a
remember.
result, Elaine is Pops' daughter. And we actually see a bit of chemistry between the two of them in Corn Dog Ugly.
Okay.
And so she'd actually be Gary's potential love interest, and we just like throw the virgin shaming gimmick out the window. So anyway, Pops kind of catches them in the act, and they end up causing Pops a heart attack. It also like shuts down their business, and they just like are incentivized to set up back on the road. So
with Elaine now?
This is what leads. No,
they leave her behind.
Yeah,
she could
stays behind.
add in a female character. You know, it's why not?
Female going.
I mean, the idea of also like bringing Beth in at some point. They bring Beth back, but yeah, this is also gonna lead up to another part of the continuity where Mike had actually he accidentally conceived a child with Breeze from a fish fry, and Mike would end up getting custody of the child because Breeze would lack the overall responsibility herself. And upon like finding out that Mike's raising a kid, it would actually maybe incentivize Beth to go ahead and take Mike back and help him raise the child, knowing that Mike's too irresponsible to raise a child, but also kind of seeing that he's matured in a way. So, circling back to Gary, Gary would later find out that in losing his virginity to Elaine, he also sired a child with her.
Wow,
and this
a lot
would
of
come,
children.
Yep, and this would come later down the line that they would, at the end of season 2, become fathers themselves, and we would fast forward to like 20 years later, where it's Gary the Third and Mike Jr.
So then we have we go way far in the future, and those two go on the road trip. So it's like brand new adventures with their offspring.
And here's the idea I also had. Season 2 would be a period piece. It would be set in 2002, just 1 year after the setting of the first season.
That's a good idea for bringing the show into the present. As you could have, as you're following the kids and everything.
But anyway, it's sticking to like Gary the Second and Mike Senior. We would actually be, be looking into like how they'd be able to clear their names after they escape the police, and after they get out of the sewer or meet up with a guy who could give them a ride down to probably Louisiana, where Mike would actually see about meeting his old college roommate, who would later turn out to be a transsexual, and also give him flashbacks of what had happened in the scene where he makes out with a trans woman, trans person, and who looked like Gwyneth Paltrow. And at first he'd be put off by the idea, but Gary would sort of just like convince him to like see past his prejudices, and we would also just find them getting in a situation where they are like finding a crowd of homosexuals, helping them fend off against a bunch of homophobes. Because yeah, this is Louisiana and it's in the deep South, so you gotta probably also kind of encounter that kind of comedic situation.
I mean, this all
So-
sounds like a real episode. So it sounds like you have the feeling of the show.
Try to immerse myself as much as I can. Another idea that we were going to throw out there, that I was going to throw out there, is something that Harlan Williams gave me when I did a little bit of a short email interview with him, and was that they were going to go to, I guess, this mall of some kind that would specialize in, I guess, a parody of LASIK surgery, and they would actually like try to get Gary to get LASIK surgery to fix his eyesight so that he's not as noticeable on America's Most Wanted. But the machine goes wonky. He ends up like carving a swastika into his head, and then a rabbit bat and somehow flies into the room and bites him, and he goes haywire, and kind of like starts shouting obscenities. And they would also encounter the Shagelstein family again, and from New York, New York.
I don't remember that family.
The Shagelstein family were the guys that accused them both of murder, or for the murder of Nana Shagelstein. Remember the song?
Oh,
Nana
how does the song go?
How does the song go?
Yeah. Secondly, accused of murder of Nana Shagelstein.
Yeah, wow. I gotta watch it again.
But yeah, they actually go in New York. They go to a bar mitzvah where they had like assumed an alias, or Mike assumed an alias, Saul Finkel, who was actually the same name of a guy who killed like the fathers of the son's bar mitzvah's mother, and that sort of like caused a chase scene that sort of happened as a flash forward in the beginning. And so we would have them come back in this episode, and they would accuse Gary of being an anti-Semite, but also kind of finding out that Saul Finkel was with them, and because they think Saul Finkel is Mike, and it would also like kind of throw in the self-hating Jew remark, because Finkelstein, Yiddish, and it would kind of just imply that he's buddied himself up with neo-Nazis. And so they give chase again, and somehow they gotta find a way to like get Gary cured of the rabies that he caught from the bat too. So it would be a whole bunch of hijinks and chaos, and yeah, this is actually something that would maybe even be like the third episode that I kind of had it floating in my head there.
I mean, you should pitch it to the network then.
Go for it, Chris.
Or, you know, maybe write a show that's similar but not the same, because I mean, maybe if that show never comes again, you know, you should write your own.
Honestly, I'd rather just see a revival. Well, as God is my witness, before I die, I would just like to see a revival of Gary and Mike.
Yes, let's reboot that.
It would be fun to, I really enjoyed oh, he left. That was his famous last words. But yeah, I mean, that was an amazing crew and really good friends. So I would be happy to reunite that crew and work with them again.
It would be so cool to have Gary and Mike back, like a revival. And before I say my final comments, my final question for you, Sarah, is what's next for Sarah de Gaudemar? Now, this is a part of the show, Sarah. This is open forum. You could say, talk anything you want. I am passing the proverbial microphone to you. The floor is yours, Sarah.
I don't know what's next. I mean, the industry is a bit slow right now because we just had a bunch of strikes. So it's not a lot of stuff being made. So that's a really good question. I am currently directing a series that's in CG for kids. And I also have been making like little stuff for like social media advertising, like for Nickelodeon, animating some of their characters and things. But yeah, it's a slow period right now. So I don't know yet. We'll find out.
Yep, and you have my support in anything you do. And I just want to say before we
Well, thank you.
oh, that thank you for not only an amazing interview. I have to thank you for all those memories you gave me watching the Celebrity Deathmatch, Gary and Mike, the PJs growing up as a little boy. You have this incredible gift, Sarah, where you could take a 30-something-year-old fan and knock him way down here and make him feel like that 8-year-old again watching Celebrity Deathmatch, or make him feel like that 11-year-old watching Gary and Mike. It's just an incredible gift, and I'm going to give you an early Christmas present or holiday present. I don't know what you celebrate, so I'm going to say holiday. And I am going to mail you a copy of those Gary and Mike episodes.
Oh, thank you.
Email me your address, and I will send you those things pronto, because I have
Okay.
at least 7 of those 13 original episodes, and I believe they have the commercial breaks, and they're from the UPN showings.
The commercials would be interesting to see, actually. It's a good time capsule.
You're gonna love it. And also, what I was also gonna say, I'm gonna give you a copy of this interview when it's final and edited. And yeah, like I have a lot of prizes. And actually, I'm going to send you an email, a link to those original Gary and Mike like YouTube. There's a YouTube page that has all those episodes on it, I believe. I'm gonna send you a link to that so you can
So
rewatch.
I can catch up. Should have done it before the interview, actually. I didn't realize there'd be so many questions about like my favorite part.
Not only are you going to get a YouTube copy of that, I'm going to give you a physical hard copy of those DVDs, because I can actually, what I did is my dad used to record Gary and Mike like back in the day, and I converted those old VHS tapes to DVDs. I can make you a DVD copy. If you have a DVD player, I'd be happy to make you a copy of all those Gary and Mike episodes.
I do have a DVD player, so yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. You email me your address and they are yours. I have no problem making those DVDs for you.
Awesome, thank you.
And one last thing before we conclude, and I feel like you deserve it, and this is for years of your animation. Like I always said that you're not only one of the one of the greatest animators in the world, but you're simply the best, in my opinion.
Oh, well, thank you. That's very sweet. I mean, it's a whole team of people making stuff, and I am happy that I could be a part of it. And I love to hear that people were so moved by it, especially when they tell me, "Oh yeah, I was a kid and I watched that." It makes me feel good. It's nice. It's nice to hear. So thank you for actually having seen Gary and Mike. I mean, that was one it's rare to find someone who has. So
Not only that, but
well, thank you.
and not only that, but I can say that your work inspired me, because there's 2 things I always wanted to do before going into the educational field, like because I'm a teacher assistant for special needs children.
Oh yeah, you did say that. It's an interesting job.
One thing I always wanted to do was be an animator or a voice actor, and seeing your work really inspired me to do like stop motion animation.
Oh, so are you animating stuff?
You know what? I tried to, but like it's very hard to get like the software. Like I want to do stuff on the computer, but there is a museum in Queens, New York called Museum of Moving Images, and they have
Mm-hmm.
animation booth where you can actually they have this camera where you can put stuff down and you can animate it picture by picture, frame by frame, and that to me is like really cool.
Yeah, that's neat.
And I just want to say before we conclude, and I feel like you deserve this for all the years you have worked on and gave us many memories that both Chris and I watched growing up, and that is thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Sarah.
You're very kind.
don't you worry. I'm going to work on making this copy right now. So you have a copy of the interview. You have a copy of the YouTube page for Gary Mike, and I'm going to be
Okay.
mailing you the Gary Mike DVDs, so that way you have them for your own.
Thank you.
No problem. You have it all. Amazing. It was an honor talking to you.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to meet you.
Take care.
And see you.